The year my wife got blacklisted, I divorced her. Everyone called me a heartless bastard, but I still forced her to sign the papers. Later, she clawed her way out of that abyss, becoming Hollywood's golden girl, an Oscar-winning superstar. I avoided her for 3 years, thinking we'd never cross paths again. Then she saw me at my absolute lowest. Her eyes, when she stared at me, were filled with pure hatred. She humiliated me in front of everyone, then forced booze down my throat. I couldn't stop throwing up, mouthfuls of dark red blood gushing out. She just sneered, saying it was payback for betraying her. I didn't argue. I let her torment me. I was dying soon anyway, as long as she was happy. You've had your eye on this series for a long time, haven't you? Chug this bottle, and I'll sign on the spot. I stared at the bottle of whiskey, filled nearly to the brim, fighting back the violent spasms in my stomach. I forced a sycophantic smile for Colin Vance. My hand trembled as I took the bottle he offered. With everyone watching, I poured the harsh, throat-burning liquor into my gut. The moment the whiskey hit my stomach, a searing pain shot through me, making my whole body shake uncontrollably. Last week, when I went to the hospital for chemo, my oncologist had practically begged me to check in. He'd said if I didn't start serious treatment immediately, given how fast my condition was worsening, I could drop dead any second. I'd ignored his pleas, ripped out all the IVs and monitors, and fled the hospital while he was still shouting, his voice echoing down the hall. Just this one last project. If this TV show got greenlit, I'd have no regrets. I clenched my fists, bit down hard, and pulled the contract from my briefcase. I flipped to the signature page and placed it reverently in front of Colin Vance. When he made no move to take it, I quickly grabbed a black pen, uncapped it, and, bending in an almost 90-degree bow, offered it to him. "Mr. Vance, please sign. Thank you for your time." Colin Vance took the pen, then frowned, flipping through the contract front and back several times. Seeing this, I hesitated, wondering if I should offer an explanation. Instead, Colin feigned clumsiness, letting the contract drop to the floor. I gave him a servile, ass-kissing grin and bent to pick it up, but he planted his polished leather shoe right on top of it. He looked down at me, a smug, triumphant sneer on his face. "Lucia, you made it." Hearing her name, my hand clutching the corner of the contract tightened involuntarily. My body went rigid as I tried to stand. I lost my balance and stumbled, falling heavily to the floor. I glanced towards a doorway. The woman standing there, Lucia, walked towards me, her eyes filled with contempt. She stopped beside me, looking down, her voice cold, laced with disdain. "Dylan Miller, it really is you. Looks like life after me hasn't been too kind, has it?" Lucia Hayes stared at me, her tone dripping with bitterness and resentment. I lay there on the floor, forcing a smile for her. "I've heard all about your incredible success, Ms. Hayes. I know every studio in town is banging down your door. Please give our company a chance. Whatever your terms, we'll meet them." After I spoke, my face ached from the forced smile. The burning in my stomach was churning relentlessly. The intense discomfort made me desperate to escape this humiliating scene. Lucia always used to hate it when I was obsequious, said it made me less of a man. I hoped today that same disgust would make her want me gone quickly. As I'd expected, she turned away disgusted and sat in the chair beside me. She picked up an unopened bottle of aged whiskey from the table, held it out to me, and said casually, "Finish this, and I'll consider giving you a shot." I looked up at the full bottle of whiskey. My stomach roiled violently. I clapped a hand over my mouth, forcing down the bile that rose in my throat. I gave an awkward laugh and shook my head at Lucia. "Miss Hayes, I already had a bottle earlier. If I drink this one, I'm afraid it might actually kill me." Lucia's eyes lowered, a flicker of disappointment, then pure hatred crossing her face. She gestured to the door. Her bodyguard, who'd been waiting there, immediately strode towards me. He pinched me down, forcing me to kneel before Lucia. Her eyes were full of contempt as she picked up a bottle opener, uncapped the whiskey, and then, grabbing my chin with one hand, ruthlessly poured the liquor down my throat with the other. "Dylan Miller, you owe me this." Lucia Hayes knew I couldn't hold my liquor, yet she still forced that entire bottle of whiskey down my throat in front of everyone. Only when the bottle was empty did she release my chin, a satisfied look on her face. The instant she let go, the inferno in my stomach erupted. Clutching my mouth, I bolted for the restroom. The moment I reached the toilet, the contents of my stomach spewed out, wave after wave. The pain was excruciating, like a meat grinder tearing through my insides, shredding my stomach lining. I saw dark red blood splattered against the white porcelain and frantically hit the flush. In my peripheral vision, I saw Lucia standing in a restroom doorway. She was staring at me with revulsion. I quickly wiped the blood from my lips with my sleeve, then bracing myself, struggled to my feet. I finished that bottle too. About the TV series, Our Company. I'll have my people contact your agent. Thank you, Ms. Hayes, for giving me this opportunity today. Thank you. I leaned against the door frame, bowing my head slightly towards Lucia, but she grabbed my lapel, shoved me hard against the door frame, and stared at me, her eyes blazing. 3 years ago, when I was blacklisted, when the internet trolls were tearing me apart, you forced me to sign those divorce papers. I thought you'd be doing great. I never imagined you'd sink this low. You didn't expect this, did you? I won 3 major international awards. I became an A-list actress. Not only did I not quit showbiz, I made a massive comeback. Dylan Miller, do you regret abandoning me in that hellhole, saving your own skin? Lucia glared at me, the hand gripping my lapel trembling slightly. I quickly looked away from her eyes, which seemed to want to devour me whole. I tugged at my suit jacket, pressing my lips together tightly, trying to keep the blood from rising in my throat. Why didn't I answer? Lucia released my lapel with a frustrated sigh. She'd been holding me so tightly that when she suddenly let go, I wasn't prepared. My legs buckled and I crumpled, kneeling right in front of her. She stared at me and let out a cold laugh. From this moment on, Dylan Miller, your career in this town is over. I'll use every contact, every resource I have. Anyone who helps you is making an enemy of Lucia Hayes. Even if you crawl on your knees, begging for work like you did today, no one will pity you. Lucia bent down, her eyes burning with resentment as she stared at me. Dylan Miller, I'm going to make your life a living hell, with nowhere to turn, just like mine was because of you. I couldn't meet Lucia's eyes, my heart ached, the sharp stabbing pain. My lips moved. That deal memo. I already discussed it with Mr. Vance. Could we possibly? She turned away coldly and ordered her bodyguard. Get this pathetic loser out of here. Throw him as far away as possible. I struggled desperately, trying to break free from the bodyguard's grip. Just this last bit of money, and then I could die in peace. I didn't want anyone harassing Lucia because of me after I was gone. I thrashed, shouting at Lucia. Just this one last contract, Ms. Hayes. If you let me sign it, you can have my life, I swear. Lucia stared at me, her expression one of utter disdain. Dylan Miller, do you really think your life is worth anything to me? I looked at Lucia's cold, indifferent face, despair washing over me. I let the bodyguards drag me out. They threw me roughly onto the pavement at the hotel entrance. When my body hit the marble floor, a coppery taste filled my mouth. Then, with a retch, I vomited a large gush of blood. I scrambled up from the ground, a complete wreck, and staggered towards a curb. I had to get to a hospital quickly. I couldn't die yet. I still had one last debt to pay. The taxi pulled up to the hospital entrance. I jumped out as fast as I could, running on fumes, and sprinted towards the main doors. But it was too late. I died right there on the steps in front of the hospital entrance. My spirit drifted, light as air, uncontrollably floating until I was beside Lucia Hayes. I thought she'd be heading home, but instead she'd come to the production company. The office was dark. She sat on the sofa, eyes closed, lost in thought. A sound came from the doorway. I instinctively tried to hide behind the door, then remembered I was a ghost. No one could see me. I floated gently to Lucia's side, and we both looked towards the entrance. Colin Vance pushed the door open, his arms laden with bags. His eyes immediately finding Lucia. That little donut shop on Maple Street was closed, so I got some from another place. Try them, see what you think. Colin unpacked the items one by one, laying them out in front of Lucia. He carefully took out a pair of disposable gloves and handed them to her. Lucia put on the gloves, picked up a donut, and took a bite. Before she even chewed, she spat it out in disgust. This isn't right. It's too sweet, too greasy. Don't buy these again. Seeing Lucia's finicky expression, a sharp pain lanced through my heart. I wanted so badly to reach out, to hold her hand, but I couldn't. I couldn't even touch her fingertips. That donut shop on Maple Street had been my favorite spot back in college. At first, Lucia hadn't liked it. I'd pestered her daily, begging her to go with me. After a while, she'd naturally come to love those donuts as much as I did. In recent years, the couple who ran the shop had gotten older. They only made 100 donuts a day. If you were late, you missed out. I was a glutton but lazy. I'd always beg Lucia to go with me the next morning, and then I'd oversleep. But every time, Lucia would have a fresh, warm donut waiting for me, the sweet smell filling the air. I knew she'd gotten up before dawn, stood in line, and bought it for me. Back then, seeing Lucia's gentle, innocent face, I'd sworn to myself I'd marry her, spend my life with her, make her happy forever. But then the production company I was running ran into trouble. To protect her career, I had no choice but to force her to divorce me. After the divorce, I found I could get up early and wait in line myself. But somehow the donuts I bought never tasted the same. What's the difference with these donuts? Why do you only eat the ones from Maple Street? Colin, slightly annoyed, tossed the disposable gloves onto the table. Though he tried to control himself, his hand still made a sharp sound as it hit the surface. Lucia looked up at Colin, her voice hard and impatient. I didn't force you to go buy them. Colin frowned, walked around the table to Lucia's side, and put an arm around her shoulder, his tone placating. Tomorrow I'll get up earlier. I'll go to your favorite place, okay? Seeing Colin's arm around Lucia's shoulder, a sour feeling churned inside me. But I knew she wouldn't stay alone forever. Besides, I was dead now. Lucia shrugged off his hand, turning her head away. Colin, just go. I want to be alone for a bit. Alone, Lucia? Don't think I can't see it. You just want to get back with Dylan Miller. 3 years ago, you begged me to help you manipulate his salary contracts. Later, when the company had problems, wasn't that you pulling my strings, too? After the company crashed, you racked your brains trying to kick Dylan out, afraid that if you waited too long, he'd uncover your scheme and get the Millers to crush you in this industry. But you didn't expect him to file for divorce first. It was you who told me to use the Vance family's influence to blow up the story of Dylan forcing you into a divorce, making you out to be the victim in public. For 3 years, against my family's wishes, I helped your production company go public, bribed judges to make you an award-winning actress. You said that once you won, you'd marry me. Are you trying to back out now? You should know. If I can lift you to where you are now, I can also make you crash and burn, lose everything. Colin stared at Lucia, his eyes full of menace, as if trying to see right through her. I stared at Lucia, my eyes wide with shock. Everything I had endured for the past 3 years felt like it was collapsing in that single moment. I anxiously floated around Lucia, desperate for her to explain, to tell me Colin was lying, to tell me she'd never done such things. But Lucia rose on her tiptoes, pressed her lips to Colin's, her eyes full of a calculated allure, her voice a honeyed purr. Baby, how could I possibly want to back out? Watching their passionate kiss, I clutched my head, desperate to flee that place immediately. I surged towards the door in a rage, only to be repelled by a wall of white light. I sank to the floor in despair, uncontrollably pounding my chest where my heart should be, but I felt no pain. I couldn't even feel a heart. I covered my ears, trying to block out their sickening sounds, but it was useless. No matter what I did, I could still hear them. I slumped in the corner, memories of Lucia and me flooding my mind. I was the Millers' illegitimate son. My mother died from an amniotic fluid embolism during childbirth, bleeding out. The Millers had always treated me harshly. Most people didn't even know I existed as their son. From a young age, I knew the Millers wouldn't give me a dime. If I wanted a decent life, I had to make it on my own. Right after college, I started my own business. I'd set my sights on the emerging market of short-form web series. Lucia and I had talked about its potential. She agreed it was a gamble worth taking, so we decided to start a studio right after graduation. We pooled all the money we had, rented an apartment near campus, and began our entrepreneurial journey. At that time, short web series were booming online, so we jumped in. I was a good writer, quick-witted, so I handled the scripts, creative development, and post-production. Lucia was beautiful, with a great figure, so she was the on-screen talent. We enthusiastically shot content every day, but we gained hardly any followers, let alone ad deals. After more than 3 months, we were broke. We couldn't even pay the rent. The landlord threw all our belongings out onto the street and told us to get lost. On a bitterly cold, snowy night, Lucia and I dragged our suitcases through the streets. Feeling the last $10 in our pockets, we decided to get a hot meal, shoot one last video for closure, and then give up on our so-called startup and find regular jobs. We were making a serialized drama, and for that last episode, we wrote a proper ending, wanting to finish what we started. Unexpectedly, a previous episode went viral without warning, racking up over 100 million views. That night, Lucia and I sat under a highway overpass, each clutching a packet of instant ramen, screaming with excitement. The views kept climbing, and followers poured in by the thousands. Lucia and I leveraged that momentum to get ad deals and started doing live stream sales to make money. By our second year after graduation, our company had over 100 employees, and we had achieved financial freedom. We transformed our studio into a full-fledged production company. After the production company's valuation hit several hundred million, we planned to take it public. All preparations were complete, but then disaster struck. There was an issue with Lucia's talent contract, leading to an investigation. The funding pipeline for our new series dried up, and advertisers and sponsors pulled out overnight. We were back to square one. I looked at the flawed contracts on my desk, the chaotic financial reports, and then at Lucia, whose face was even paler than mine. I swallowed the harsh words that rose to my lips. I told Lucia it wasn't in accounting or legal. It was normal for her not to spot these issues. Ups and downs in life were normal. As long as we were healthy, there would always be a chance to make a comeback. But I never ever expected that a random stomachache would lead to a diagnosis of stomach cancer. And not just any cancer, but a poorly differentiated signaturing cell carcinoma, the most aggressive kind, with a 5-year survival rate of less than 10%. My oncologist told me it was still early stage. If I cooperated with treatment, there was a good chance of a cure. He urged me not to give up. I didn't check into the hospital immediately. Instead, amidst my doctor's sighs, I left. Back at the company, seeing the mess, staring at the 800 texts a day demanding debt repayment, and dealing with the Miller family who were relentlessly pressuring me to hand over all my company's shares, I made a hard decision. I took all the debts onto myself and forced Lucia to divorce me. For these past 3 years, to pay back the money, I've worked myself to the bone, ignoring my health, even knowing I was dying. I believe in finishing what I started, in repaying every last cent. I endured so much torment and suffering, only to find out now that it was all set up by Lucia. I looked up at the two of them on the office sofa, disheveled, a look of satisfaction on their faces. I felt so sick, I wanted to tear them apart. Colin was nuzzling Lucia's neck. When we get married, I want Dylan Miller to come. Colin's words were cut off by Lucia's phone ringing. She answered it, her expression instantly turning grave. She grabbed her coat and ran out. You're lying to me. How could Dylan Miller be dead? The morgue at night was vast and eerie, a chilling place that made your skin crawl the moment you stepped inside. Lucia had arrived in a hurry, even putting on her coat on the way. One of the crystal buttons with its Chanel logo was still misbuttoned. Her waterfall of dark hair, though she tried to smooth it down in transit, still looked messy. She stood silently beside my body, head bowed, lost in thought. I floated beside her, my gaze following hers to the pale, tragically still form of myself on the refrigerated slab. When I died, I must have hit my face on the marble steps because there were several fresh cuts. Though the blood on them had already dried, I frowned in disgust. That Dr. Ben was so careless. Couldn't he have shown a little end-of-life compassion and wiped my face, made me look a bit more presentable? And again I sighed. Over the past 3 years of sporadic treatment, I'd already racked up a considerable medical bill with Dr. Ben. I planned to pay off all my debts, then work hard to earn enough to pay him back too. Poor Dr. Ben, stuck with a patient like me. Lucia, who had been standing motionless beside me, slowly took a step forward. She stared at me for a long moment, then suddenly burst out laughing. Dylan Miller, are you trying to get back at me? I only made you drink 1 bottle of whiskey, and now you're here playing dead to scare me? Do you think I'd fall for such a pathetic act? Lucia yanked me up from the refrigerated slab. She gripped my shoulders tightly, her eyes blazing with fury as she stared at my lifeless face. Dylan Miller, I'm warning you. Stop this charade. Even if you really are dead, I won't claim your body, and I certainly won't arrange your funeral. All these years, don't think I didn't know what you were up to. Publicly, you cut ties with the Miller family, but secretly you've been in contact with them all along. You just wanted to use our production company as a stepping stone back into the Miller fold. That's why I teamed up with Colin Vance to mess with the company. The company was my life's work, my only chance to break free from my past and climb the ladder. I want to be famous, to be at the top of the food chain in Hollywood. I couldn't just stand by and watch you hand it over to the Millers. Seeing Lucia's resentful expression, my eyes widened in shock. So she'd been wary of me all along. When the company first started to take off, the Millers had indeed contacted me frequently. They had discussed merging our company with theirs, but I refused every time. Later, they tried to threaten me, using my mother's recovered belongings as leverage, demanding I cooperate quickly, or they wouldn't let her company off easily. Seeing the Millers' ugly greed, I fought back. Our company did suffer serious setbacks during that period. The reason I never told Lucia was because I didn't want her to worry, didn't want her to act rashly because of the Millers and offend them more. More than anything, I didn't want it to affect her focus on her acting. I never imagined she knew all along and even twisted my meetings with the Millers into evidence that I was trying to suck up to them. She never even asked me. She just directly conspired with Colin Vance to frame me. I truly never thought that the woman I loved most would, after we'd made it, spend her nights suspicious of me. Suddenly, there was a noise from behind. Lucia laid me back on the refrigerated slab, tugged at the hem of her coat, and glanced over her shoulder. Upon seeing Dr. Ben Carter in his white coat, she scoffed, then pointed at him, her expression a mixture of emotions. "You're my ex-husband's attending physician, right? Come here and look. Isn't he just faking death to mess with me?" Dr. Ben Carter violently shook off Lucia's hand and pointed at my body, glaring at her fiercely. "I'm Dylan Miller's oncologist. We found a large amount of alcohol in his system. I've already contacted the police, and they've opened an investigation. The police have confirmed with hotel staff that Dylan Miller was maliciously forced to consume a large quantity of hard liquor shortly before his death, which directly caused his condition to deteriorate and led to his sudden demise. I trust the police will be contacting you soon. I hope you can maintain this act of ignorance." Then Lucia's body swayed slightly. Her gaze fell upon me, a flicker of panic in her deep, almond-shaped eyes. She mumbled, "Impossible. How could he be dead?" As dawn approached, I followed Lucia Hayes to the police precinct. Colin Vance and Dr. Ben Carter arrived around the same time. Upon seeing Lucia, Colin quickly walked to her side and tightly gripped her hand. His expression was complicated, but a hint of a smug smile played on his lips. "Lucia, is Dylan Miller really dead?" Lucia frowned slightly at Colin, unconcealed annoyance welling in her eyes. "What? Are you happy he's dead?" Colin froze for a moment, then scoffed and shook off Lucia's hand. "Where do you see me being happy? I'm just worried his death will bring trouble down on us." "I'm worried about you, Lucia." Lucia clenched her fists inside her coat pockets, her eyes downcast, saying nothing. Looking at Lucia's demeanor, I cast a pitying glance towards Colin. Although Lucia outwardly seemed to obey Colin's every word, fawning over him, from what I knew of her, she didn't like him at all. Lucia was probably only with Colin to get the company public and secure her acting awards. I shook my head with a bitter smile. This woman truly would sacrifice anything for her career. A police officer brought out my belongings from when I was alive. Dr. Carter must have retrieved them from my apartment. My health had been deteriorating, especially in the last 2 months. Sometimes severe anemia would cause me to faint unexpectedly. Afraid no one would claim my body if I died, I'd given Dr. Carter a spare key. I never thought it would actually be needed. The officer's gaze fell on Lucia. "You're Dylan Miller's ex-wife?" Lucia's brow furrowed as she looked at the items in the officer's hands. Then she slowly nodded. The officer handed Lucia a file folder containing my papers. "These are the deceased's outstanding debts. Our investigation shows this debt was previously a joint marital debt. Later, the deceased managed to transfer it solely into his name. This is the last of the deceased's debts. He already paid off all the others." The officer pushed a thick stack of transaction records forward. "The total debt here is $50 million. This is what the deceased repaid before his death. Take a look and see if there are any issues." Lucia, holding the bill from my unpaid portion, stared at the transaction records on the table, momentarily stunned. she murmured in disbelief. How is that possible? I cleared all the company's debts long ago. Why would he need to pay them? And why was he paying these debts himself? What about the Millers? Didn't the Miller family help him at all? The officer frowned, rummaged through a pile of documents for a while, and produced the written statement of my disbursement from the Miller family. In the declaration where I personally assumed all debts, it's all here. You can review it yourself. Lucia clutched the documents, her face ghastly pale. She turned to stare at Colin, her eyes blazing with fury. Why was Dylan paying these debts? After Dylan left the company, you said you'd return all the money you siphoned from the company accounts. Why do you have to pay this? Colin, flustered by Lucia's stare, frowned and opened his mouth to make an excuse, but Dr. Carter cut him off sharply. He looked at Colin and Lucia with rage. I feel so sorry for that idiot Dylan. When your company ran into trouble, he was afraid the Millers would try to exploit the situation. To ensure you could live well, he took on all the debts himself and cut ties with his family. To pay off those debts, his early-stage stomach cancer, which was still treatable, progressed to later stage because he kept putting off treatment. Last week, I pleaded with him to get hospitalized, but he said he had to sign one last film contract. Once he got the advance, he'd be debt-free. Dylan Miller didn't want you to be burdened with debt, even in death. And you're telling me that man already paid it off? Do you have any goddamn conscience? Dr. Carter's face was stern, his eyes filled with disgust as he looked at Lucia. After hearing Dr. Carter's words, Lucia's face darkened, as if a storm was about to break. She turned to Colin. So this was all you're doing behind the scenes, wasn't it? Where's the money Dylan repaid? Colin, flustered by Lucia's stare, grabbed Lucia's arm, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Lucia, now is not the time to discuss this. We're at the police station. We can talk about this in detail when we get back. Lucia shook off Colin's hand, her face grim. Fine. You won't tell me, right? Then I'll find out myself. Lucia looked down, dialing a number on her phone. Colin beside her snatched the phone away. I'm telling you again, I'll explain this to you. Lucia stared at Colin furiously. Colin Vance, give me back my phone. Colin looked at Lucia, his eyes darting nervously. Do you absolutely have to know right now? Seeing Colin's predicament, I suddenly felt like a complete fool. All the money I nearly killed myself earning for the past 3 years had ended up in Colin Vance's pocket. Lucia stared hard at Colin. Colin bit his lip, silent. Dr. Carter, having pieced together the truth, shouted, Lucia Hayes, don't you understand by now? He embezzled every penny that idiot Dylan Miller worked himself to death for. After hearing Dr. Carter's words, Lucia raised her hand and slapped Colin Vance across the face. The sound was so loud it stunned everyone. Colin, momentarily dazed, clutched his reddening cheek and roared at Lucia, You bitch! You dare hit me! Colin grabbed a handful of Lucia's hair, cursing. Which bitch came crying to me first, begging me to kick Dylan Miller out of the company? Since you were ruthless enough to oust him, what does his life or death have to do with you? If you really cared about him, why did you go behind Dylan's back to find me? Lucia Hayes, you're a shameless, hypocritical bitch. You do all sorts of dirty deeds and still want everyone to think you're some kind of saint. Let me tell you the truth. The company isn't yours anymore. It belongs to the Vances. I should thank you. You're terrible at running a business, but too arrogant to admit it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to snatch such a huge, profitable production company in just 3 years without spending a dime. The police officers standing nearby started to move forward to separate them. Dr. Carter quickly rushed over and whispered to the officers, Keep listening. There's definitely more to this. Their company's taxes might even be fraudulent. The officers hesitated, retracting their steps. Watching Dr. Carter stand up for me, I lowered my gaze and a faint smile touched my lips. These past 3 years, Dr. Carter was the only one who had been genuinely kind to me. Lucia, incandescent with rage at Colin's words, kicked him hard in the knee. Colin stumbled, lost his footing, and fell to the ground. Lucia glared venomously at Colin, who was sprawled on the floor. What did you say? I trusted you so much, and you even screwed me over. Colin sneered, scrambling up from the floor, intending to grab her hair again. Lucia, likely pushed to her limit, started fighting Colin like a woman possessed. Watching the two of them brawl, I sighed helplessly. When they were lovey-dovey, they conspired to destroy me. Now that they were at each other's throats, they fought with such shameless abandon. I wondered if Lucia at this moment regretted setting me up. They were both bruised and battered, gasping for breath. The police moved to detain them on suspicion of assault, possibly more. Colin immediately pulled out his phone and called his lawyer. He looked at Lucia with contempt. I was originally planning to officially take over the company after we got married. Since we've already shown our true colors today, I won't pretend anymore. From today on, you're on your own. If you have any problems, call my lawyer. Lucia watched stunned as Colin left with his lawyer. She stood there biting her lip, dazed for a long time. Then she turned to Dr. Carter. I won't get a lawyer to defend me. I owe this to Dylan. I know this is a selfish request right now, but I hope you can help me keep Dylan's body. I want to see him off one last time. Dr. Carter said irritably. Stop the fake sentimentality. If it weren't for you, Dylan wouldn't be dead. He could have lived longer. A late-stage stomach cancer patient, and you people forced hard liquor on him? You're truly demons. You still want to see him off? Don't you think you'll just bring him bad luck? If I were you, after getting out of here, I'd go after that man and fight him to the death. He not only screwed over Dylan, he screwed you over too. Even if you die, you should take it down with you. Hearing Dr. Carter's words, I wanted to punch him. What is wrong with this guy? I was already dead. No matter how I died, he shouldn't be inciting Lucia to seek revenge on Colin. Lucia looked at Dr. Carter despairingly, her lips moving, but not a single word came out. Dr. Carter rolled his eyes, turned, and walked out. I floated out after him, but when I reached the precinct entrance, I was once again snapped back to Lucia's side. Because I was a terminal cancer patient and Colin Vance paid a hefty sum as part of some settlement or plea, the police only detained Lucia Hayes for 3 days. The first thing she did after leaving the police station was to go to the hospital to find Dr. Ben Carter. Dr. Carter couldn't hide the disgust in his eyes when he saw her. Lucia Hayes, did you not understand what I said the other day? You're not welcome here. Lucia mumbled. I know I was wrong. I'm sorry, Dylan. I just want to see him one last time. Please, I'm begging you. Seeing Lucia's tormented expression, I frowned and looked at Dr. Carter. Just let her see me. Let her get this closure so I can finally leave. I really didn't want to stay by her side anymore. These 3 days she was in custody, I felt like I'd never really known her. 3 years had twisted her into this. The vibrant, cheerful woman she once was had vanished. In her place was someone volatile and quick to anger. I even suspected she might have developed some kind of mood disorder. If I stayed near her any longer, this unhinged woman would scare the soul right out of me. Dr. Carter sighed, took out a key, and led Lucia to the columbarium where my ashes were kept. Go see him. After you're done, remember to avenge Dylan Miller. Lucia didn't speak, just hurried inside. Dr. Carter shook his head and turned to leave. Lucia stared at the urn containing my ashes, and then with a thud, fell to her knees. She knelt on the floor, wailing, her voice choked with sobs. Dylan, I was wrong. I shouldn't have distrusted you. I shouldn't have been so greedy. These past 3 years with Colin, I haven't been happy at all. You know me, I'm terrible at hiding my feelings. Everything shows on my face. Lucia lay helplessly on the floor, crying her heart out. She got up and carefully cradled my urn. I should have investigated what was really going on between you and the Millers. At least I should have asked you if it was true. But by then, I was already with Colin. He deliberately stirred things up, made me push you out. Only then would he help me bribe the judges, help me win those awards. I got carried away, believed him. I never thought I'd fall for his scheme and cause you so much. If I had known earlier that you had cancer, I definitely wouldn't have done that. Dylan, I will avenge you. Even if it costs me my life, I will get revenge for you. As Lucia spoke, she scrolled through various spreadsheets on her phone, then exported them one by one into a document. She sent the compiled document to a web address. It looked like the IRS website. Then Lucia said many more things about her regrets and how sorry she was. Seeing her remorse, I shook my head with a bitter smile. Since she chose to betray me back then, what good was regret now? The moon was out when Lucia Hayes finally left. She had her driver take her directly to Colin Vance's house. The main door to Colin's house was open, as if he were expecting her. After Lucia entered, Colin said disdainfully, "Back so soon? I thought you'd give me the cold shoulder for much longer. Turns out I overestimated you. I've laid out some clothes for you. Go change into them. Then kneel before me, beg for my forgiveness. I might consider keeping you around as my plaything." Lucia sneered at Colin. In your dreams. I've already called the shareholders. My shares are still mine. This idea that the company has become yours? You must be dreaming. Colin laughed triumphantly. Me dreaming? I'm the majority shareholder. The legal representative. All the film rights are under my name. You signed all of this yourself, remember? I just haven't announced it yet. Of course those idiots at the company don't know. Lucia clenched her fists, glaring at Colin, her body trembling. Impossible. I never signed anything like that. Colin stood up, staring at Lucia with a wild, arrogant laugh. Do you remember how you tricked Dylan Miller? He trusted you so much, you could hand him any contract and he'd sign it without a second glance. I just used the same playbook. Lucia Hayes, you truly are heartless. Dylan Miller was so good to you. Even split the company shares with you 50-50ths. You're just insatiable, aren't you? Lucia stared at Colin, enraged, shaking all over. I'm calling the police. This is fraud. Colin raised an eyebrow, laughing loudly. Go ahead, call them. Let all those people who were so righteously cursing Dylan Miller for your sake back, then see just how you bully people. After Colin spoke, Lucia grabbed a fruit knife from a nearby bowl and lunged at him. I didn't come here tonight planning to leave alive. I'm going to avenge Dylan Miller. I'm going to kill you. You're going to die. My heart lurched as I saw the fruit knife in Lucia's hand. Colin, seeing her coming, tried to dodge, but Lucia was too fast. The knife plunged into his chest. Help! Murder! Call an ambulance quickly! Colin screamed at his housekeeper. When the housekeeper rushed in, Colin was slumped on the sofa, blood pouring from the wound in his chest. Lucia spat in Colin's face. This is all your fault. You drove a wedge between Dylan and me. You deliberately got close to me to slander him. I wronged Dylan, and you wronged him too. And you actually had the gall to think your Vance family could take over our company. Lucia burst out laughing. Colin Vance, dream on. I've already submitted the evidence to the IRS. Let's go to hell together. Lucia threw her head back, her laughter chilling and grotesque. She pulled the knife from Colin's chest and plunged it forcefully into her own. She lay on the floor, dying, her gaze fixed on the diamond ring on her ring finger. Dylan, wait for me. I'm coming to apologize to you now. When we get to the other side, we'll be together again. This time, I promise I'll only love you. After Lucia died, my spirit suddenly felt lighter. To prevent ever encountering her again, I desperately floated upwards. In this life, you can love the wrong person once, but not 3 or 5 times. Taking a wrong turn might be bad luck, but repeatedly jumping into the same pit is just asking for it. When I had floated high enough, a dazzling white light suddenly flashed before my eyes, and then I completely vanished. Lucia Hayes, goodbye and good riddance.